Hello, everyone. Welcome to CSA Talks. Today we are hosting dear Dr. Gary Bradt, and he is a psychologist in clinical side, and he has a huge experience in psychology and also change management. And he has been working with the companies and the people for about more than 20 years. Maybe you can say about the years and your experience, and we would like to listen your experience today. We have only 15 minutes, Gary, but I prepared very good 3 questions for you. The first one is about the pandemic. Of course, everybody is talking about the pandemic, but everybody is talking about the negative side of pandemic and the destructive parts. But I also think about we gained something, we learned something from this pandemic. And I think there are some plus sides, some benefits we gained. And what do you think about it?
Every change in our life creates pain because it's difficult for us, because by definition, our brains don't like change. Our brains are set up to keep us alive. And if I can predict what's going to happen next, I feel safer and my chances of survival go up. So when any kind of change comes along, it makes me feel insecure. And there's a certain amount of pain to that. And certainly with the pandemic, there's a tremendous amount of pain with that. However, there's always the other side of every change, including this pandemic, Derya, is that there's a gain to it. There's a positive side to it. And we have to decide where we're going to focus our energies, on the pain and the hurt, or are we going to focus on the gain and the positive? They're both there. We don't want to deny the reality of either. But for example, I've heard from many, many people during this pandemic that the positive side of it is it gave them a chance to take some time to step back from the very, very busy life that they were leading before and ask themselves, was I really doing what made me happy? Was that job really working for me? One of the, I think it was the New York Times, I forget, but a paper here, they asked people to write in your pandemic experience in 6 words. In 6 words, summarize your pandemic experience. And one of my favorite responses that I remember, Derya, was a woman. She wrote in and she said, lost job, lost boyfriend, found happiness. And to me, that sort of summarizes that, yeah, there is loss, there is pain. But my goodness, so many of us have reached out to friends. I don't even know if you and I would have been talking today if it hadn't been this pandemic, because we're doing so many more things now virtually. You and I probably never would have even met or have spoken. So the pain is real, but the gain, the positive is real as well. You've got to decide which one you're going to focus on.
Yeah. I'm really surprised with the example. Yeah, you're right. I never thought about it. Actually, I keep everyone around me, and I'm still very happy. But I'm happy for her too, because she could have a chance to see what's happening in her life. Yeah, it's an advantage. Yeah, this changing in the life, just not because of the pandemic, but because of the technology, everything is evolving. Smart houses, smart cars, smartphone, everything is smart, and the system pushed us to be more smarter. The system tells us that, okay, you have to learn everything. You have to use this application. You have to know how this ERP works. This program, and people feel sometimes very stressful because it is not very easy to know everything. There are plenty of technology around us, and we're surrounded with the digital and the online, and we cannot live without electricity and Wi-Fi and our phones. And I've heard that if we cannot stay with our smartphones more than half an hour, we start feeling the organ lost anxiety. I don't know if it's real or not, but our brain thinks that our phones are one of our organs. I think it is very dangerous. But I would like to ask you, do we have to learn everything? How can we cope with this stress? Because everyone feels insecure if they cannot use this technology and if they're not aware of new things. For example, this Clubhouse application, now everyone is talking about it. And if they do not have an invitation and they feel that they're out of something, they're missing something. And how can we cope with it? Do we really need to know everything?
Listen to how you just framed it and how you just said it, because that's how our brains add stress to our lives. When we say to ourselves, I have to know everything. I need to do this. I must do that. I should learn Clubhouse. I'm not a part of Clubhouse. Oh, no. The anxiety and the fear comes from how we think about it.
Yeah.
And if you start thinking about technology as something I have to learn, you're always going to be stressed out, because there's always going to be technology, more than you can learn, more than you need to learn. And so if you can make the shift from I have to learn every technology out there or I'm falling behind to what do I want to learn? What technology am I interested in? What technology would be beneficial to me, and therefore I want to? The huge shift between I have to do this versus I want to do that. That's where the power comes. And that's where the release comes, because the stress doesn't come from the technology. The stress doesn't come from the world out there. The stress comes from right up here and how we choose to frame what this world is telling us. And if I buy the world's lies that I have to learn everything, and if I'm not on Clubhouse, I'm falling behind, I'm nobody, I'm creating stress. If I can say to myself, hey, let me check out that Clubhouse. If it makes sense for me, maybe I'll do it. If it doesn't make sense for me, I'll make that choice because I don't want to do something that doesn't make sense for me. Businesses do the same thing all the time. They'll go out and chase the latest fad, the latest technology. Oh, we have to do this because everybody else is doing it. And they don't stop to step back and ask themselves, wait a minute, does this trend, does this technology really apply to us? Does it make sense for us? So both at a business level, organizational level, and at a personal level, if you can get out of the have to way of thinking about things and stepping back and reflecting and saying, what do we want to do? Because it makes sense for us as a business, it makes sense for me as a person. You're gonna find much more joy in learning the new technologies, and you'll be much more comfortable saying, I think of that Clubhouse thing, or, for me, I've had to do the same thing. I got Twitter, I got Facebook, I got LinkedIn, I got all these things I could do, Instagram. I've decided LinkedIn. That's the one that I'm most comfortable with. That's the one that I like the most. My audience is on there. They're on other places as well. Doesn't mean I won't dabble in those others, but I've decided I'm going to focus in on LinkedIn because I don't feel like I should or have to be on anything else.
Yeah, and it is more sustainable. If you choose one of them or two of them, then you can focus more and you can, express yourself in a way that you prefer. I agree with you. Actually, I feel a bit guilty because I have all of them. I have to rethink about it actually. And you're totally right. Yes, we need to question. We need to ask ourselves, do we really need to do it? I think this is the point. But when we come to business life, there are always a very tough competition. Maybe that is the reason people feel this insecurity, because they feel if the technology comes and if they cannot learn it, they can lose their job.
But then you're just chasing things. Now, if you work for an organization and the organization says, hey, here's a new technology and we're going to use this new technology, then go learn the technology if you want to keep working for that company. That's fine.
Yeah.
But you can think about it like if you go to a banquet where there's a lot of food, a smorgasbord, there's just all kinds of foods you could choose to eat. You're not going to eat all the food.
No.
You're going to look at all the food and decide which of this is appealing to me right now. Now, if my doctor told me it's a good idea for me to eat this over here, maybe I'll eat that because it makes sense. If this technology is good for me to learn over here, I'll go learn that technology because it makes sense. But if I try to eat everything, I'm going to get sick.
Yeah.
And if I try to learn everything about technology and put all that pressure on myself, I'm going to get sick. I'm going to get stressed out. I'm just going to get bummed out. It's no good.
Yeah, people need to, aware of this point because it's very related with their well-being. And at some point they can lose their health and well-being. And you're totally right. Gary, it's very nice answers. Thank you so much. And I have my last questions. Actually, this is my ritual. I ask the same question to everyone. And time to time, I ask the same question to myself also. If you had a time machine and if you could go back 10 years in your life, what would you do differently? Because there are people outside younger than us, and they're maybe in the beginning of their career, and they don't know, how to behave, what to do. Just one hint, one tip you would like to share with them.
If I could go back 10 years and talk to myself, I would say, Gary, whatever you're worried about today, it's okay. It's gonna be okay. And sometimes, Daya, the pressures of everyday life can feel so overwhelming, and they can feel like, oh my gosh, my world is caving in. I'm over here in the United States. We've got a lot of problems here in the United States right now that the rest of the world is watching with our politics and all these horrible things going on. And if I narrow my focus and all I can see is what's right in front of me right here, right now, it's going to look horrible. But if I can step back and have a broader perspective, a longer timeline, I can go, oh, we've been through tough times before. We've gotten through them again. And if I could go back to myself 10 years ago, when I was going through, say, a tough time, I say, hey, I understand this is a tough time. You're going to get through this. You know how to do this. I'm here from 10 years in the future to show you that you make it through. And Daya, if we can do that every day and remind ourselves, hey, wait a minute, never mind 10 years ago, what am I worried about right now? What am I stressing myself out about right now? What if I narrowed my focus so all I can see is the negative in my life, that I need to step back, take a broader view and go, hey, there's a lot of beauty around me too. There's a lot of good around me too. And now that I've calmed down a little bit, okay, here's the thing I'm worried about today. Let me focus on what I can do about that rather than just sitting around being worried about that.
Oh, thank you. I take your, suggestion personally, and I will use it. Thank you so much, Gary. I'm sure people who is gonna watch our interview, will be inspired from your words, your experience. It's, very pleasure talking to you. Hope we can do it again. And thank you so much for sparing your time with us and your experience and your beautiful words. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. One quick last thing. I was asking a lot of people, you go back to your first question, where are the positives?
Yeah.
At the beginning of the pandemic, this guy wrote me, because I was asking people on LinkedIn, I said, hey, what's going on with you? What are you learning through this? What's going on with you? Guy wrote me, he said, Gary, I was in 3 businesses before the pandemic. I lost all 3 and I was devastated. And then I said, well, what am I going to do? And he said, well, now I got a little bit more time. He loved to paint. He was an artist. And he said, well, now I got a little bit more time. I started to paint again. And then I realized how much I loved it. And now I've taken that and I'm turning it into a business, and I've never been happier. Listen to that, Daya. He lost everything in the pandemic, business-wise. And like 3-4 months into it, because of how he decided to react to it, he said, I've never been happier. So folks, go out there and make the choices, not that you have to make. And there are certain ones we have to make, but you want to minimize those. And you want to make the choices that you want to make to build the kind of life that you want to have. Thank you so much for allowing me to spend a little bit of time with you today.
Thank you. Thank you, Gary.